So the first question, this one's actually just came through, and this question was all about having gone through a clearing, but feeling that they were saying usually feeling a little bit tired or exhausted after going through something like an energy clearing, a seals and implant clearing, something to this effect. But then they were saying after today's clearing that they felt a bit jazzed and even a little pissed about all the seals and implants that had been in there in the first place. And I want to just I'm going to couple this in some of the different ways that this thought form comes up. So, what I would like to say is that when we are doing seals, implants, or any kind of clearing out miasma, karmas, debts, or anything like that within our field, that we are shifting our biology. We are literally shifting the programs and the light language or DNA sequential patterns that our body is running off of. And so as we begin to shift and change these energies, it can feel a lot like a detox. Sometimes our body will need to rest. It will be as though our body has to shut down a little bit so that it can kind of reset or reboot how it's functioning or what parameters or programs we're running off of. It's interesting for us to think that our library or the light language actually runs through our DNA. And when we start to shift the coding in there, primarily we are correcting the light language in there. We're taking out the distorted codes and reconnecting or sometimes disconnecting the distorted codes, and then sometimes reconnecting or resetting the sacred geometries of the correct light language in our DNA. And when this happens, you would imagine that all of the light language that's running through your DNA is actually what's kind of holographically projecting out as your filters or your perception of how you see the world. It's our lens. In a lot of ways, it's inside of us, but yet it's still operating into our perception, our thought forms, our filters, our viewpoint. Our subjectivity to the world is actually being projected from our chemistry and our patterns that are going on inside of us. And one of the ways I like to kind of remind us is that we know if we start eating in different ways, it can change for better or worse the way we think or feel. It just does. It changes our chemistry. So going through clearings does exactly the same thing. It starts to change the DNA coding within our body, which starts to change the DNA and the RNA within our body, which starts to change the information that's flowing through our bloodstream, which starts to change our imprints into our amino acids, into all the different communication streams and the hormone streams within our body. And if there is buildup of certain types of residue within our body, a lot of times we'll feel that purge up. So sometimes we'll go through a clearing and then we'll feel really angry. We'll feel really upset. We'll feel really agitated, like, ugh. And what that is it's actually taking a lot of that miasma or load, karmic load that was in our system. And if we can be the neutral, compassionate witness and just watch it pass on through, that we will process it a lot quicker. It won't be something that we will start to think is ours, but we'll get to recognize it's just passing through. So our body can react in many, many ways going through some sort of clearing, or when our body is healing and repairing and going back into balance. It can sometimes need to shut down and get tired in order for it to kind of reset its systems. Sometimes we'll get jazzed and energized because it'll actually start to move a lot more frequency through. Sometimes we might feel a little bit agitated because it's actually stirring up things within that start to detox out. Think about doing a detox. Sometimes we get real grumpy when we go through a detox, and then finally it passes through and we're like, oh, I'm so happy now, I'm okay. so just that's something to be mindful with. What I like to recognize is that any kind of changes or fluctuations that you start to feel are actually just an affirmation that you've really done some really powerful work, and that's the really special thing. So I hope that helps a little bit, kind of getting to touch in on that. There's a secondary aspect that real quick I want to touch on, and this is kind of common in disclosure. The whole idea of starting to find out what's going on, or truth, or disclosure, or however you want to look at it. Sometimes we go through a life, and then all of a sudden this new information is dropped on our lap, and it kind of blows everything away of how we thought things were. And then we start to see maybe underneath the rug, or behind the curtain, so to speak, of some of the things that have been happening, kind of hidden from us. These negative alien agendas, these manipulations and traumas. I am going to say it this way. It's kind of an off way of saying it, but it's kind of like being, since we were talking about cows, cattle on a field, and not realizing that your life is in a pen because you're born into that captivity. You don't know it. So you just think this is life. And then what if your consciousness expanded as a cow and you started realizing this farmer's being so nice to me, but I didn't realize they were raising me to, like, as their property, or for food, or for milk, or to use me, or whatever, for the energy, so on and so forth. And when that happens, it's natural for us to have a reaction of getting angry about it. I remember ages ago and I can't even remember the name of the film. I maybe want to say something like Zeitgeist or something like this, or think about all the videos when they started to really show what was going on in some of the farming practices or things like this, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was going on. And it's that shock, because you're truly living at the highest level that you can, but based on the level of understanding that you have of what's going on in creation. And as we are going through these ascension practices, we're literally ripping off band-aid after band-aid after band-aid of these false holographic inserts. False holographic inserts are basically these beautiful bubbles that we live in, and we start to clear the bubbles so that we start popping out of all of these false realities, and we can start to kind of see the bigger picture. And then we start to realize, okay, yes, these things are going on, but in the end, we come back to recognizing, oh, but I'm the one that now still has to be the creator of my dream within this reality, regardless of what others are trying to project into my dream. So it's natural for us to many times feel agitated, frustrated, or angry when we start to find out about things that we didn't realize were super impeding upon us. And then once that clears, it's kind of like stages of grief that you would go through. It's kind of like stages. Once that clears, you can start to feel your empowerment come forward, because you get to recognize it's coming with the tools to clear it. So that's hopefully helpful for that one.